This is Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System. Most zones in this game take around 30 or 40 seconds to complete, including the very long Labyrinth zone. But if you watch the TAS of this game, you might notice something pretty weird in Labyrinth too. Let's have a look. A normally 50-second zone becomes 8 seconds. This is called a horizontal underflow glitch, and today we're going to learn about how it happens. So this here is a simplified view of our level, and it should help us understand this glitch. The level's broken up into pixels, and that measures Sonic's X position. So currently he's sitting at about a position of 10 pixels in, and if he moves here he's going to be sitting at about 98. Now I've also got the hex values here, and all you need to know for this video is that's just a different way of counting numbers. So let's do an example. If Sonic's sitting here at 160 and his hex value is A0, let's say he has a velocity of 3, that means that he's going to be moving 3 pixels every frame. So what that looks like is +3, he moves a bit to the right, and there we are at 163. Now a frame is 1/60th of a second, so this is a very short amount of time. Now if you're moving left, your velocity is going to be negative. Let's do -5 for example. If we're already sitting at 163 and we do -5 velocity, we'll move left to 158, just like that. Now you might be wondering, what's stopping us from just walking off the left side of the level into the oblivion? Well, there's a wall here at x equals 9, and that stops you from walking off the left side. Sonic's normal movement speed is 3, and that's when he's just walking, so you need to be walking 3 times as fast as that to get off the left side of the screen, because you need your speed to be more than 9 pixels per frame. So let's do an example of that. If Sonic's sitting at a position of 10 and the velocity is -11, well, he's going to move left, and then our next position is going to be -1. So we'll actually get past this wall because the wall only goes from x equals 0 to x equals 9 automatically in every level. So we're going to get past that and go to -1, and we need to talk about what that represents as a position. So to work out our new position there, you basically have to do 10 take away 11. Now we know that should give -1 as the answer, but the game can't really handle negative numbers. To figure out what it does, we'll need our good friend long subtraction. Let's step through and see what happens. If we're doing this subtraction, we work from right to left, so we're trying to do 0 take 1 first. Oh, can't do that. So we better borrow from that 10 there, and now it becomes 10 take 1. Great, that's 9. Perfect. So we got to do the same thing here, 0 take 1 again, which again causes us a problem. But realistically, in the game, your X position might be something like that, but then there's still stuff going on to the left of it. So whatever garbage happens to be over here, we can just take from that, and that becomes 10. 10 take 1 is 9. Perfect. Now in reality, the game doesn't actually take away from that garbage, but essentially what we get is 99. So you might have heard people say when the game tries to do a negative number, it just does a really big positive number. This is why. So here's an example of how we can understand this a bit better without going into weird garbage hex stuff. So think about 810 take 11, that gives you 799, but if the game is only using 2 digits to measure your X position is actually going to be 99, which is a really big number. So now let's jump back to the game and look at what's happening with this glitch. This will show you the information such as the X position. We're currently sitting at 96.938, so about 96 pixels from the left side of the screen. I've also got the velocity showing just underneath that there, and we're pretty close to 0 because Sonic is only starting to speed up. You'll remember that in the TAS, Sonic runs to the right and then jumps back and goes to the left. We start building up a lot of speed. Now don't worry too much about how we're building up a lot of speed, because I will talk about that later, but the point is we're going to go pretty fast. So as we build up, our velocity is now -6.625, so about twice as fast as normal walking speed. That's going to keep increasing up here, and as we watch our X position, it's going to get very close to 0. 44, 35, 26, 17, and 9.016. Now, if I happen to hit 9 with my X position, Sonic would bonk that invisible wall and lose all of his speed, but our speed's still 8.844. Now, as I said before, you need at least 9 pixels per frame to make this underflow possible, and it just so happens that on our next frame we speed up to 9.031 pixels per frame. So this clip is just barely possible. There's only just enough room to do it, and it is so lucky that it worked out. You can squeeze out 0.031 more speed than you need, Sonic underflows, and as you can see, his position is now 65,535. If you're familiar with hex, that's FFFF. So it only stores your position in 2 bytes, meaning it underflows. We've gone to the right side of the screen now. Let's look at what happens. So the position snapped to 2012. The reason for that is the level is only 2012 pixels wide, so if Sonic's beyond that, it'll snap Sonic to that number. Now, as we wait for the camera to catch up, as soon as it does, we'll be hitting the signpost and finishing the level in 8 seconds. So now that we've seen the underflow glitch in action, I want to talk about how we built up all that speed to get past 9 pixels per frame. I'm going to blow up the X velocity in that bottom corner there just so that you can see it a bit easier. Now Sonic normally is walking around like this, the maximum speed is 3, but there are a few different ways to break that speed cap involving rolling off an edge. As we can see, we get to 4 or 5. As we roll down hills, our speed goes up, but if we walk uphill, then our speed will go down. But the way that we did it, we didn't have a ledge to roll down or an edge to roll off. So what we actually did was we did this rolling exploit glitch. So normally when you roll, you're going to be rolling like this. When you start rolling, you'll lose a bit of speed. Now, it's 2 ways to get out of a roll. You can press left or you can jump. Jumping will retain your speed, but pressing left will make you lose a bit of speed. If I press left here, I'm going to go to 2.734. So I've lost about 0.2 pixels per frame of speed. So that's how breaking from a roll works. It takes off 0.2 pixels per frame. And the key word is it takes off 0.2 pixels per frame. So that always applies to the left for whatever reason. They just did subtract and didn't think about if you were already going left. So what happens if we're rolling when we're going left already? Well, you're going to lose some speed. But if I brake by pressing right, it's going to take off 0.2 pixels per frame, and now I'm at minus 3.156 in my speed. If I roll again out of this, I'm going to start losing speed again, but if I press right to brake, I'm going to get to minus 3.281. And if I keep pressing down, right, down, right, down, right, down, right, you can see my speed is building up quite a bit. Now if I keep doing this, I'm going to build up a lot of speed and eventually get up to that minus 9 that I needed. Now, as you build up more and more speed, Sonic's going to cover ground more quickly, so you'll run out of ground to do this pretty fast. But if you have a lot of room, you can pretty much make your speed as high as you want, until it gets so high that it wraps around and becomes positive speed in a similar way to what we saw with our X position wrapping around and becoming a negative X position. But as we can see here in Green Hill Zone, I've already got a speed of minus 9, and then the only other key to getting the underflow glitch in Labyrinth is just making sure our position was perfectly lined up to be just before that barrier wall on one frame and then just after it on the next frame. So now that we've seen how the underflow glitch works and how to build up the speed for it, let's look at what makes a level appropriate for this kind of glitch to work. I've got Labyrinth Zone 2 here, which is the level we were looking at. We've got the full level up the top and then a zoomed in version on the bottom. We start here and we're supposed to go down through this bottom section, all the way around, all the way up, and to that end of level bit. This one little wall here is all that's blocking us from going from the start of the level to the end of the level. But as we know, we did the underflow glitch, so we went off the left side of the level, came out the right side, and then we got to the signpost. So there's 2 things you're sort of looking for in the underflow glitch. First thing you're looking for is you want a long enough space to build up speed. This space here past the spikes is the absolute bare minimum we need to build up enough speed. So you saw we got like 9 point something that was very small. That's the smallest amount we could have had to make this work. The other thing you need is for where you start the level to be higher than where you end the level. The reason being, if we clipped out, say, from this wall down here, then we couldn't jump up high enough with Sonic to get up to this bit of the level, and you wouldn't be able to get to the signpost because you'd be too low. So those are the 2 conditions we're looking for. Enough space to build up speed, and the start of the level has to be higher than the end of the level. Let's look at all the levels in the game and see if this could be used anywhere else. We'll start with Green Hill Zone Act 1. We start the level on the left here, and it's a linear level going all the way to the right until that end. And fun fact, the end of game sequence is actually sitting just to the right of this level here. Weird stuff. Now if we go off the left side of this screen, that in-game sequence actually stops us from getting all the way through to this signpost. So this underflow isn't really possible. No matter how fast you can't go fast enough to clip through this area, and you wrap around to a positive speed before that clip is ever possible. So Green Hill 1 is a no-go. Green Hill Zone 2 starts to look very promising. So we start in this top area here, and you're supposed to go down through the cavern here and off to this signpost. You'll notice the signpost here is lower than where we started the level. But the issue is, we don't have enough room here to actually build up the speed. You're supposed to fall into this cavern, and you just don't have the space to do it. Green Hill 3 is our first level with a boss. So we start here and climb up this hill to the boss. That end of level capsule is way too high. We can do the underflow here. What happens is you come out the right hand side and die. Next zone up is Bridge 1, and this originally looks pretty promising. So we got this starting area here and the ending areas on the similar level, and we got heaps of room to build up speed there. Issue is, when the developers made this game, they left a bunch of empty space on the end of the level. This map doesn't show it, but there's probably about 3,000 pixels of space to the right there. So when you clip off the left side of the screen, you're jumping over the open abyss, and you can't make a jump that far, pretty much no matter how much speed you have. So Bridge 1 isn't possible. Bridge Zone 2 is an auto-scrolling level, so no matter how fast you go to the left, you can't break that screen. Bridge Zone Act 3 looks promising based on the layout. You have enough room and you can make a jump here. The issue is there is still that gap on the right side of the levels. There's this big empty space you can't jump over, but even if you could, when the camera scrolls past the boss arena, it locks you into the boss arena itself. So there's no way to really get past that here with an underflow, unfortunately. Jungle Zone 1 is one of the closest zones to working apart from Labyrinth 2. It's a fairly linear level, and you just go right to win. The end goal is slightly higher than the starting position. Now there is a gap in the level here, so you do have to do a jump, and that gap is slightly too wide to do a jump over, even at the maximum speed you can get to the left. But this is probably the closest to being possible. Jungle Zone 2 is a big vertical stage, and horizontal underflow wouldn't really help us out here at all. In Jungle Zone 3, you climb from the bottom here up to fight Ivo and then go to the end capsule. Horizontal underflow here would lead us to this right side of the screen, which doesn't really have anything useful. Although there is a potential skip here if you could make the jump from this vine up the top here to the end capsule without jumping on Ivo's vine, and you could skip the screen scroll like that. It's pretty close to working, especially on the Game Gear version, but I haven't been able to get it so far. Labyrinth 1 is pretty close to working. The starting area is higher than the ending area, and normally you'd have to go through this whole section of level here. But the issue is there's just not enough room to build up speed. The slime here takes you to the right really quickly, and there's no way to get back up after that, so you're stuck without having enough speed to do the underflow. Labyrinth Act 3 is a really strange one. So you start down the bottom, go up and fight the boss, and then hit the capsule there. But if you do the level wrap, you'll get stuck at the coordinate 65,532, which is basically near FFFF. So the screen never pulls you to the right side of it, you're always stuck in there, and you're basically just stuck on the ground. You can sort of jump around there, but you're stuck down here. If there was a way to get clipped into this wall, then what you could do is kind of jump up the wall and get to this capsule, all the while holding the camera underneath Dr. Robotnik so the fight never triggers. A bit of potential here, but there doesn't seem to be any way to get past that 65,532 barrier. Scrap Brain 1 has the same issue as Bridge Zone 1. The map doesn't show it, but there's a huge gap between this and the actual end of the level, so you have to jump a 2,600 pixel wide gap to make this one work, which you can't do. Scrap Brain 2 is made up of multiple rooms, this being the first one. If you do get a clip off the left here, you'll hit that 6,535 number again. That seems to happen whenever there's a solid wall on the right of the level. Scrap Brain 3, we have the issue with the wall on the right side of the level yet again. You can get the clip here, but you can't get through that wall. In Skybase 1, you would be able to get the clip off here, but the issue is there's basically nothing down this end of the level, so you'd have nothing to land on if you did get it. Skybase 2, there wouldn't really be much point in getting it because you're trying to get from this platform down here up to that door there, which is a pretty short trip. It's about 7 seconds anyway. Skybase Zone 3 is sort of the boss level / end of the game. You can't get the clip because of that wall there on the left. And that's pretty much all the levels. As we can see, the only one that actually does work is Labyrinth 2, but there are a few that are pretty close. So the Labyrinth Underflow trick is pretty much TAS only because of all the frame perfect inputs. However, I have found this RTA setup which uses pause buffering to get all the inputs that you need. This is pretty tricky to do because when you do the pause buffered inputs, you have to pause, then the next frame unpause, and then like pause again. So it's basically like a double frame perfect trick every time you do one of these pauses, and you have to do it about 40 times. So if somebody was crazy enough to do it, they could probably snag the IL record by about 40 seconds using this setup, but I'm not sure if that's really going to be possible because it's quite tricky to do. I have got it myself, but I've used a bunch of save states to do so. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you like it, a subscription is always appreciated. I should have some more explanation videos like this coming out soon. Thanks for watching.